All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Goose, and the man himself, Joe Snydman.
What's going on?
Set Sales. In this episode, we have special guest and national account manager, Joe Snydman. We cover topics that range from customer retention, sales quotas, the art of new sales, competition, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Mary Kay Ash and Thomas J. Watson Jr. Guys, if you're new, thank you for listening. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, Joe, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Obviously been a fan for a long time, watching you guys and listening to the podcast, so super excited to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we had his brother Evan Snydman on episode 46. I grew up with the Snydmans, so we're very close friends. Everyone obviously grew up and are currently doing their own thing, so it's nice to catch up and kind of tap into what you're up to and all your things, and obviously all of us can learn a little bit from you. So won't you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Joe Snydman. I'm a national account manager with the largest commercial industrial roofing company in North America. Currently cover a territory that is all of New Jersey and parts of New York City. Been working in this industry for 3 years, and then total in sales for 8 years. Didn't originally start in the construction industry, but this is kind of where my path's taken me. Yeah. And like I said, June will be 3 years at this company. Things are going pretty well right now, and
nice.
Just keep pushing along.
So, I mean, maybe you knew at a young age, but sometimes everyone knows sales is not for everyone, right? So was this something you grew up and you're like in the back of your mind you knew you were going to do, or was just kind of something you fell into? How did that all work out?
Yeah, so I would say, growing up, I wasn't necessarily like, this dream story of like pushing all these little products or anything like that. But I think, I saw some people that were older than me that were in sales and had some successful career paths. Yeah. Went, a bunch of different ways, but ultimately was able to make a good living in that industry. Yeah. And ultimately, you're responsible, you create what you make. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I didn't want to be waiting on somebody else to make me money. I'd rather go out and get it myself and just be able to create for yourself. And this way there's, the sky's the limit in a sense, because you have no cap. Right.
So was your first job as a salesman or doing sales or pushing products, or how'd that work out? Like straight out of college? What was all that about?
Yeah. So funny enough, I actually worked for a roofing company straight out of college. Nice. It was a door-to-door job. It was only commission. I was actually working for a friend at the time. Yeah. I had tried getting into, with corporations, and they kept pushing back saying you need experience. I was right out of college. How was I supposed to have experience? Right, exactly. So, I went back, did that for like 6 months to a year, flipped that into another job working as a small business consultant for a payroll company. Nice. And then from there, worked there for 3.5 years and kind of just elevated myself and tried to keep going that way.
Yeah. So what would you say, as you went from your first job and you progressed, were you looking for, obviously, so your first job was commission based. Were you looking for something that was also commission based, or you're trying to get a salary plus, commission? What's like the goal? Like, what's like the sweet gig with that?
Yeah, I guess the dream is obviously always have the salary and then commissions on top of that. But I think I was just looking for more support as like a corporation behind me too, with a name behind me. Yeah. Especially being set up, and then the ability to grow in the company. So I don't know if I want to be in sales the rest of my life. I want to get into management or try to be an executive, something crazy like that. Definitely. You know what I mean? You have to take these steps, and I think that's why I did it.
So how did it work? Back in 6th grade, I had to sell M&Ms to get on a trip to like Dorney Park or something for school. And
everybody has the candy sale.
Yeah, the candy sale. You had to sell the box or whatever.
Or the candy bars or whatever it is.
Right. Even then, I don't even know if I realized it. It was easy to me just because obviously you're a kid and most kids, have a smile and then people think you're cute and they're just going to buy something off you, right? Totally different when you're pitching something more than $1 to somebody, right? Sure. Yeah. So, Can you explain to us, a little bit about your experience and like the pitfalls with that? And, it's not, I know for a fact that's not easy.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I would say, my second job out of college where I was working with small businesses, it was a smaller dollar amount sale. You were dealing with small businesses. So not to say that they weren't sophisticated, but they don't have the sophistication of a large Fortune 100 company or a Fortune 200, whatever it may be, company. So I think that's what I found the biggest difference was right away is that I was started going from selling these small, maybe $2,000 deals to now I'm working with like $200,000 deals or $1 million deals. And like right away it was like, whoa. Like,
you felt the weight of that.
The buyer, I think that you get is completely different.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people that I end up talking to, I'm 30 years old. A lot of them have been in their position for 15 years.
Sure.
I haven't even been out of college that long.
Right.
So they kind of, in some instances, they almost have a look to me already because I'm young.
Right.
Until you get talking and start explaining yourself and explaining what you're doing. But I think that's been the biggest difference from going to not a lower level position, but just trying to take your next step in your career is just dealing with larger volume deals and more sophistication on the buyer end.
So I know for, the door-to-door thing, I'm always fascinated with this. It's not easy because we still get it. It lowered in its percentage, I would say, from like the mid 90s when, people were selling Kirby vacuums and stuff to your front door to now where you just get the random like oil companies, that are trying to like lock into you already pay for electric or oil or whatever. And they're not really selling you something like, well, you don't have to pay nothing. But I see them and they have these like, these iPads or whatever, these tablets like wrapped around their necks and they're just like entering all this data. It looks brutal. And I know a lot of doors get like slammed in their faces or like not even answered most of the time. Or someone's in there, you could physically see them in the house and they're just ignoring the door. How do you get over that those mental, those are blocks, I think, that create a toughness to you?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And, I don't know, I call them gatekeepers. Because like in my business, you always have to get through one person in order to get to the person I'm trying to talk to. So a lot of times these guys have assistants, they have secretaries, and a lot of times their job is to keep people like me away. They don't want to be talking to me. They don't want me talking to the boss because they're like, oh, he's just going to be bothering them, trying to sell them something, whatever. So, that's always... You have to, if you're going to be in sales, you have to be okay with rejection.
Yeah.
You have to get cool with it. You have to be okay with it. And it's just like, you have to just cut it loose. Once you get turned down, okay, move on to the next one.
So how do you take that rejection as this is business versus this is something personal towards me? Because here's the tricky part. What I always found, because I also did sales, and what I found, what was hard for me was my ego. And I would think is, okay, well, what am I doing? I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And we all know that's not the case. I'm not saying that I'm a perfect salesman, but that's not always the case. Maybe I was selling a good product, or maybe my approach was good. Maybe it's just that person had a bad day, or they're not listening to it, or they just had an argument with their spouse, or something like, or they just don't have the time for you, or the money. It's okay. That took me a little bit of time, and we talked about being on social media and on YouTube and reading comments where people are just bashing you, and you have to develop that toughness. How does one separate that where it's not a personal thing versus this is business?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely pretty tough too, because you have people telling you no to your face a lot of times. Sometimes it's on the phone. Sometimes it's people just clicking the phone on your ear, and I just think you have to completely take your feelings out of it. Yeah. Which I always try to do. Like, it's never about me. It's always about the customer. Yeah. So I just never try to like make it about myself, because I think the minute you start getting feelings towards the customer in a business relationship sense, and ultimately it's not good. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a close partnership with a customer or a client or whatever it may be, but I just think the ability to communicate, I guess.
Yeah. Is there like, do you have like a book or you take notes somewhere where there's potential customers and just now is not the right time?
Yeah. So like what I call it is, or a lot of people call it in the sales world, is like a tickler list. So like some people don't want to talk to you right now, just not the right time, or not the right time of year. They don't like you right now. It's Tuesday. They don't want to talk to you.
Sure.
Whatever it may be. And I just, they're like, follow up with me in a couple months. So I always have a list of people that I'm continuously calling on all the time or just sending an email.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I've found successful is the fact that you have to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
You can't be, they have 100 people calling them a day.
Right.
Why are they going to talk to you?
Right.
What's the reason?
We call that here, we call it the edge. You got to have an edge about you.
Yeah. You got to have something that's going to set you apart from the group. And here's a quick funny story that actually worked.
Yeah.
So was at my sales meeting. Somebody was saying something about how they got into this client by sending a 15 size shoe, like one of them ones you pick up at Nordstrom Rack.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So like picked up one of them, sent it to the office, said, hey, I'm trying to get my foot in the door. Dorkiest thing ever. You think it'd never work.
Yeah.
Got the meeting for him.
Wow.
So I came back and tried the same thing.
Yeah.
And it worked for me. And it was a guy who I was like trying to get in touch with for probably the last year and a half. Wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't touch me, wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
Got that, emailed me the next day and was like, hey, Joe, he's like, I know I've been ignoring you pretty much, but like, I'll take your meeting next week.
Yeah, that's
so,
awesome.
Like, it works. You know what I mean?
But
I think it's always about setting yourself away from the crowd. I think like whatever direction the crowd's going in, you got to not turn the other way and run, but like do your own thing and make sure you stay on that track.
That's awesome. I never heard that before, but I did hear, I guess it was just like foot traffic. I'm not familiar I don't remember what the business was, but it's the same thing. There's constantly, people coming in and they just get pitched with stuff. And if it's not even pitched with stuff, it's like, can you come to my event? Can you donate $50? Can you, it's always something. And it's like, how can you differentiate yourself? And it was really this person to get an interview to work for this person. So it was a totally different situation. But they walked in and taped their resume to a box of donuts. And it was kind of like the same thing. He's like, what is this? And he's like, well, I brought you guys donuts. But on the inside of the box was my resume, not mine, but was this person's resume. If you have time while you're eating the donut, could you just look it over real quick? And the person did. The person freaking landed the job. Wow. The person got promoted within 2 months, became a manager. The person's now a director of that same company that they handed over, Dunkin' Donuts like $8.99 for a dozen donuts. $8 made them that edge. It made the hiring or talent acquisition, whatever, smile and laugh because it's different, because you're getting the same white pieces of paper with black print on it day in and day out.
What do you think? If someone's that creative on trying to approach you, that's how creative they'll be in the workforce too.
Absolutely.
And they're, you know what I mean? So it's...
And it came up with a lead, kind of how Joe was saying. That wasn't even like the first contact with the person. Because to be honest with you, I think that, with the shoe or the donut, I think that would be very weird if that was your very first interaction.
100%.
That's too much. Now you're a weirdo. I'm definitely not even going to come close to you because that's who does that. But if you're building up and I see your name, and then you do something creative, there's something there. It's like, even if I don't have a position, even if, Les Brown talks about this all the time, where he called the radio station. Les Brown's now currently a motivational speaker, but he started out in being a disc jockey. And he was just doing the soundboards where, you don't do anything, the camera's not on you or whatever. So he would call every single day. Les Brown would call every single day and say, do you have a position open? He's like, Les Brown, you called us yesterday. There's no position. This is a small radio station. There's no, there's no positions open. So he calls the next day. He's like, hi, Mr. or whatever his name was. This is Les Brown. I'm just wondering if there's a job position open. He's like, there's not. Les, you just called. This is 2 days in a row now. Well, I don't know if someone died. I don't know if someone got fired. I don't know if someone walked away from you. I have no idea, so I'm calling. So the third day he walks in instead of the call. So this is where the edge comes in. He walks in and he sees the guy he obviously recognizes. He's like, hi, my name is Les Brown. I know who you are. Go get my coffee. And that was it from there. He became a disc jockey for the he's like, you got to hire somebody like that because it wasn't creepy. Now, if he just walked in and started doing that, right? Or if you there were steps leading up to that. That in itself is selling yourself.
Oh, completely. I think that's a huge point too. I think even me taking the job where I'm at now, You have to sell yourself first.
Yeah.
And I think I forget who it is. Maybe Steve Jobs that has that quote where it's like, sell yourself now and worry about figuring out the job later.
Yes.
Something along
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
And it's like, I think that's completely right.
Yeah.
Like if you can sell yourself and you have the confidence that you think you're going to be able to do it, you can learn it, jump in it and do it. And,
Yes.
figure it out on the way.
Absolutely. I think there's even like a Ben Franklin quote. It goes back. I mean, it's, here's the thing. I believe if you want something bad enough, it's not going to be pretty, right? It's not going to be like the little image that you have in your head. I mean, think about where you want to be, where you want it to be at this point in your life. I can guarantee you're going to say somewhere way higher, right? Because all of us will say the same thing. Man, I thought I'd be X, Y, and Z at this point in my life, right?
Sure.
But we are where we are for a reason, right? And we're built that way so that when we can get to the level that we always aspired to be, we can take those hits. We can take those, phone hang-ups or the door slamming in our face. You can eat that at that point. In management, I have very awkward conversations. I really do. And it's just awkward. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. You can't make this stuff up. I would have never been prepared to handle, number one, booking guests for this, going back and forth with other businesses and doing business or collaborations with other businesses if I didn't have these awkward conversations. Because after a while, you become like...
immune to it.
Yeah. I can talk to, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's awkward as hell. And I'm a little bit more comfortable with awkward conversations.
Yeah.
Even if it's you, like, kind of chin checking somebody and you're having that awkward conversation. And it's like, we all know this is awkward.
Yeah.
But this has to happen, and it's going to come from my voice, and I'm not going to text it to you. You're going to hear me say this to you, whether it's in your face or over the phone or something.
Yeah.
But you get more and more comfortable with that, and I'm not even saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying, like, these conversations have to happen.
Yeah.
Or, that's just life.
That's completely true, too. And I think just kind of revert it back to business a little bit, which you are, but, if you have to go to your customer or your client and tell them something they don't want to hear, or you have to push back on them and tell them they're wrong, that's a spicy meatball for them to be swallowing. Number one, because you're telling them they're dead wrong.
Yeah.
You're right, but you have to like toe that line. But at the same time, you've got to have the awkward conversation.
Yeah.
They ultimately respect you more down the road anyway.
100%.
Yeah.
Where, sometimes some of my, conversations I would not have, or I'd have in like a very like different angle. I wasn't directly telling, people what the issue was. I'm like, let's look out for this next time, and blah, blah, blah. And they weren't even understanding what I was even saying, because it was so like...
Beat around the bush.
Yeah, it was so, because it was awkward.
Yeah.
And then, but I do think there's a science to that. I do think there's an art to telling somebody. Then I got to the point where I was like, listen, I hate saying things like this, but this is what it is. And, we know that we got to do it this way. And how it came across was not that way. I mean, how can we make this right? To then, it's like, what you did wrong, right? Now just blunt, direct, and it's just like blah, blah, blah. But you have to watch who you use that approach on, right? So if I'm talking to somebody like that who I have a long-term partnership with, like I'm talking to my brothers or something like that, right? But if I'm talking to a new person, I'm like, listen, these conversations, they're always weird, they're always awkward. And I just throw that out there. So now it's like, all right, everyone knows. It's like, this is awkward. We get it. It's awkward. Here's the thing. We have to do something. I don't know what went wrong, or maybe it was a miscommunication on my end. I have no idea. But you did X, Y, and Z wrong.
And I think even what you're saying there, but even saying like, oh, we need to figure this out, or like, we need to like, this is going wrong and we need to do that. I think that's even, we is like, instead of going to them and be like, well, this isn't right, you did that wrong, this is wrong. You're trying to help them come up with the plan.
Right.
Now you're not coming at them necessarily. You're on their team.
Exactly. And that's, and listen, and as you said, people respect that. I respect someone saying like, dude, you did X, Y, and Z wrong. Obviously we're not all perfect. What can we do to make this right? That right there, that's a mentor, that's a coach, that's someone trying to help you, right? That's the difference between a boss and a leader. When a boss is just yelling, all this craziness, where a leader is throw it out on the table, let's look at it and let's figure this out. Because it's kind of like the conversation we had before, the show started. It's like we all have a vested interest in this whole thing being a success. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I, scold somebody or whatever when it's like, dude, this is my investment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, we're trying to make the best product, possible. So yeah, I mean, that's just all part of it. But switching gears a little bit and talking about obtaining customers, because obviously the only way, or knocking door to door isn't the only way. And obviously, I'm not sure, but you may have graduated from that method. But what are some other ways? I know you use social media. If you want to explain or expand a little bit, not asking you to leak all your secrets, but kind of give us some like hints or just kind of in the mind of where you are with all that.
Yeah, so I think it's just thinking outside the box effort. You got to go where people aren't looking, or try to go to areas that you think are different.
Yeah.
So I think, obviously everyone, there's LinkedIn, you go on there, you find things, and then, but, I personally within this industry, I've been helped with referrals from current customers.
Yes.
Where they've been in the industry for maybe 25 years. They've worked at 4 of the big companies that do what they do.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, call this guy. He could use your help, because the guy I'm working with already knows me. He's sold him on what we're doing.
Yeah.
So now he's referring me to his new customer, which you can never, at least in my experience, you never get anything better than a personal referral.
True.
100%.
It's always warmer conversation, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big way. And then, cold calling. I mean, as much as people say, once you get to a certain spot in sales, you don't have to cold call, you don't have to do this. I think I'm always going to cold call, just because I've gotten some of my biggest accounts and some of my biggest business from that method.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to leave that method behind.
Right.
Just add to it.
Right.
So I think you just have to be able to add different parts, whatever that is, referrals, LinkedIn, sending a big 15 shoe, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? To differentiate yourself.
That's Gabe's size, though, so he would actually.
He's got a box full of 15.
There you go.
I'll just keep rejecting you too. So I have a whole bunch of shoes.
That's right. Yeah, you'll have a bunch of sets by the end.
All right, so obtaining customers, obviously, is one thing. So in LinkedIn, so here's the thing with social media. Here's the thing that kills me about social, or bothers me, is the spam. And I'm not saying that that's what's going on with you, but I'm just saying, it's not even people. It's like these bots that are just, and I open up my social media. If I could open it up right now, I'll guarantee there's like 4 requests that somebody wants. Hi, you want to gain more followers? It's like stuff like that. It's like, come on, like, how does this not get blocked already? How old is Instagram at this point too? Where you're not, I don't even know if they have a method behind that or whatever. And you could decline them, but there just gets to, it's kind of like what you're talking about with the edge. It's like, how do you separate yourself from the junk when it comes to social media? Because social media is totally different. Yeah. Right. So do you have yourself like a presence? Obviously, you have a good picture, or you have like a great little resume that you put on there so people understand who they're dealing with. But it gets to a point where it's like people are asking me if I want more followers, and they literally have 67 followers themselves. It's like, you just know off the bat that's trash.
Right.
How are you now, I guess, interjecting into the minds of people who are now find this obnoxious?
I would say that it's different with everybody. Like, I think you have to cater to your crowd. So sometimes I deal with people who are younger. They're my age. They're 30 years old, even younger than me, and they own these huge, massive companies or have a big interest in them. And other times, so those people are obviously involved in the everyday of the social media. They're on there. They're interacting. Yeah. Whereas no offense to the older generation of some of my clients, they're not on there as much, and they just tend to blur it out. Because they don't want to deal with any of it. So they don't want the good, the bad, the spam, nothing. Yeah. Whereas the people my age will take it. So I just, I don't necessarily go about it because I work for a larger corporation on social media platforms like that. Yeah. That's more of like my company that does that. But I think it's all about your brand, and what you bring to the table. Because ultimately, the people are buying from you, and I think it always comes back to you. They're not gonna buy from somebody that they don't like, and that's so like cliche to say. Everybody says that in sales, but it's true. Like, dude, it doesn't matter what you have.
It's very true. Listen, we referred a realtor, right, who helped us obtain our house and all that good stuff. We literally did it because of the service that she provided. Dude, there was no, it was like this person literally goes to war for you when it's trying to get your assets in alignment and trying to get you this property or whatever it is, or sell your old property, whatever it is. She like just goes to bat for you, right? So it was literally out of the kindness and genuineness out of our heart. We're referring her to, yo, if you need something, blah, 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 it was X, Y, and Z. And I'm bringing this up because I'm going to ask you a question. But, we got like a letter later on down the road saying, like a thank you letter that apparently one of our friends, I didn't even know initially that they used this person, that, you got a little kickback for a referral. And it's like, this is crazy. I wasn't even doing it for that. Obviously, like, thanks. But it was like, wow, it made me want to refer even more. Not because of the kickback. It had nothing to do with that. It was because you felt appreciated. You felt that your referral was valued. Is that something that you do where you have a customer who then refers you another customer? Do you give them any kickback, or is that an idea or a concept, or do you even send them a thank you? Like,
yeah, so I definitely do. We can't give kickbacks like monetarily values or anything like that. But in terms of like a thank you card, always like I would never. It'll always be a handwritten note too. I don't,
And he has some ugly handwriting.
Yeah, it's like chicken scratch, horrible. Sometimes I have to apologize for it as I'm writing it, and I'm like, this is so bad. But instead of just getting like a typed letter, that's so much. People just feel it's like more personal, and they feel the connection too. And I think when you show them that you actually care, you're so thankful to that. Yeah. That like, of course, like just in your case, you want to do it again. You want to refer again because you want that feeling again, even though you don't know it was coming. You want that feeling of appreciation again. Yeah. There was another appreciation, another award, whatever it was. It can get addicting, but that's like that goes back to this whole like repeat customers. So talking about that, how do you maintain the customer once you have them? So getting them is one thing, and everyone knows we could blow this out the water, right? Goose knows. Goose is a barber, and he had staff who, let's just say, aren't close to the calendar or the clock very often, and they're just blowing appointments, and someone's sitting around for 45 minutes waiting, and they forgot, and that can go so many different directions, but they lost that customer. I can guarantee that, right? Or you see that customer sitting in the other barber's chair the next time. I don't know if you want to talk about any of that, but
no. But that's just like if you handle those situations. Me as the owner of the shop, if you handle that situation the right way, that person's not going to leave your establishment or business or whatever. They'll stay within, but they'll never do business with that person that they're waiting for. So it's all like the same thing. It's like honestly, now that person. They had an appointment with Barber A. He didn't show up 45 minutes late, and I suggested, like a recommendation, how about try Barber B? He's just as good, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So now he's there. For me as a business owner, my appreciation is that he keeps going to Barber B now. Yeah. So it's like now this guy, everyone's happy in a way, and the guy lost out. And
a lesson for Barber A.
Exactly. Now lesson learned, and everyone's happy at the end. And I mean, obviously, if you're blowing like customers away, you should expect like for them not to come back, or expect something in some kind of discipline, like no money in your pocket, like whatever, no commission 100%. Or whatever. So that's for me as a business owner. That's what I try to do. Try to redirect it, and I'm in the middle of everything, so I try to, like you said, give a recommendation to another barber without them going somewhere else.
Yeah, without them leaving.
Keeping the business within,
Yeah, completely. And I think just like retaining your customers is so hard. Like you could work for a year and a half, 2 years just to even get a meeting with that person. Yeah. And I feel like that's when the work starts, right? Once you get the meeting, that's when the work's actually started, even though you feel like, oh, I've been beaten down for the past 2 years. You know what I mean? But you have to you have to come with your plan then and be ready.
Yeah. And the hardest thing with anything is being consistent and just trying to like maintain anything. Like even if you go working out, like you lose weight, the hardest part is maintaining to lose that weight, keep that weight loss. You know what I mean? Same thing. If you have a client you've been trying to get, the hardest part is to keep them happy and satisfied, maintain that relationship. Yeah. So it's all about
just that one thing you said, consistency too. Just with anything in your life, I feel like you can apply it anywhere. Yeah. As long as you're doing it, you're going to be successful.
Yeah. Now one thing that was mentioned there that I'd like to bring up is when you have a customer who obviously is giving you a difficult time, the misconception of a salesman is basically they just sell whatever. They don't care. It's all about the commission. They don't care. Now, some people, the mentality is that, but I think the most successful people, they're also adding value to their customers, whatever their product and service is. With that being said, are there customers that you have turned down? So the opposite, because, or you could potentially, maybe you haven't come across that just yet, but you could potentially see yourself, and why would you?
Yeah, so I have turned, it's only really happened once, I would say. I had to turn someone down.
Yeah.
And it was more of a position of, I felt that I was getting toyed with in a way that wasn't professional.
Yeah.
So I kind of was just like, I'm not gonna keep jumping into this situation. I'm not gonna keep trying to do work for you because you haven't given me any business yet.
Yeah.
You've asked me to go look at a bunch of things, right? But you haven't given me any business, and now you're kind of playing games in the rat race that this is.
Right.
So I don't really have time for the games, more or
right.
less. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so let's either just talk business, or if you don't want to work with me, tell me that too. Because I'd respect it more if you just told me, listen, Joe, I don't like you. I don't want to work with you. Whatever it may be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or if it's just we don't like your company. Okay, that's cool. Just tell me. I'm off. I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a way to handle that.
I don't know who it was. I don't know where I heard this, but they said when you're in an argument or you're in a conversation, the person that wins is the person that, not that they don't care, it's that they don't want it as much. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's almost like a stressor where it's like, you're dying to have this deal. I'm trying to make this deal. The person that's in power is the person who gets to say yes or no, this deal's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not as intense or tense as you are as the salesman. So there is something about being laid back, but there's also something about being so laid back where it doesn't look like you care. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have enough where it looks like, all right, you care enough. Listen, I'm going to put the ball in your court, right? This is where we stand. This is my product and service. This is what my company does. This is how we're better than the competition. Here's my edge. Boom. You lay it out on a table. Obviously, that's a very clean conversation. It's not always that clean, but you walk away and then you follow up. And my favorite approach is, I'm not selling you anything today. And I know how blunt and cheesy and wait, what? A guy almost sold me on an alarm system for my house doing this. He's like, I'm not selling you anything. I can't sell anything. We're not allowed to take money. And he came up to me and I'm like, all right, what do you, now he opened at least opened the conversation. I'm like, I already have an alarm system. I don't need a new alarm system. But honestly, I want to learn something from what you're doing right now because that approach was so dope. I haven't heard it. That was his edge.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not selling you anything. I can't sell anything. He's like, look, I have we don't even have that. What's that little white card thing that you could you could plug it into your iPhone, you could swipe credit cards on?
Cube or something.
Cube. Yeah, it's like a cube. I think it's Cube. Anyway, it's just like a little device that you plug into your cell phone and you could swipe credit cards and you could accept payments. He's like, I don't have a Cube. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm like, all right, so what are you doing then? Because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
And I don't need an alarm system. I have one already. It's more of what is he going to say now? Because now I need my foot in the door. And it was great.
Dude, I had that with a search engine. They called the shop phone. They're like, can we speak to the owner or manager of the business? I'm like, yeah, that's me. I didn't say what position I was. I said, yeah, that's me. They're like, all right, we're from, I don't want to say it was a search engine company, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, yeah, we just want to take 5 minutes of your time. It's not going to cost you anything. I'm like, all right. So I was at the end of my lunch break. So I'm like, all right, let me hear you out. So they started going on with telling me some kind of plans. And they knew all my stats on who's looking me up and whatever, and they were on point with it. And then all of a sudden I'm looking, I'm already 8 minutes into this. I'm like, okay. And then they started trying to sell me on some stuff. They're like, oh, well, we can give you this package so we can make your make your website first, blah, blah, and now it's $30 a month. And I'm like, now I'm fuming. Because this lady told me it's not going to cost me anything. I thought she was just trying to, I don't know, update something on my system or whatever. So now my next client comes in, and I'm still on the phone. And I was trying to be patient. I was trying to so it kept going. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested. I'm good where I'm at, blah, blah, whatever. Like, okay, we understand you're not interested. Hold on, I want someone to talk to you. I'm like, I don't want to talk to no one. I got to go. I have an appointment coming. Dude, as I'm talking, someone else comes on the line. Oh, hello, Mr. Velez, because I told him, we just want to see if we can get you. So now there's two people on the phone with me. I'm almost 15 minutes deep, and they're trying to charge me $80 a month. And I said this. I'm like, yo, you guys better come up with a better tactic. I'm backed up on I'm a barber. I'm the owner of the barber shop. I have appointments coming in. I'm 5 minutes backed up on my appointment. You told me it would take me it'll be 5 minutes of my time. It's not going to cost me anything. Now it's costing me $80 a month, whatever. I'm like, I appreciate the call, but thank you guys, and can you get me off the list? They're like, yeah. And they kept going. I just had to hang up, which I should have did in the very beginning.
Yeah.
But if I would have never explained myself, now they understand that this is what they're doing to people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's feedback on them.
Yeah.
Like, I just, because I like to have feedback on my business. So I was trying to give them feedback and, like, trying to be the most polite way. But, dude, they're trying to get business from me and they're being rude.
Right.
So I'm like, dude, there's no, like, and it is a huge company, too. I'm like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
That's search engine optimization.
Yo,
And, yeah, that's and it is big. It's big when, people listen. People don't go to your website to see how great you are. They just don't. They because everyone knows you're going to fluff yourself and you're the greatest thing
now,
since sliced bread.
Yep.
So what they do is, what do? They go to Google and they see how many, who's ranking you, what's the commentary,
stars you have,
how many stars you have. That's what it is. Search engine optimization it's SEO. That's great stuff, but that approach is awful. So it's kind of like almost going to the over-promising and under-delivering, which is the worst position you want to be in, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're a salesman, whether you're a father. There's nothing worse than coming up short of your promises, right? To yourself, that's maybe one thing, but when it comes to other people, that becomes a reputation that you do not want to have. Have you ever, got yourself in a jam or anything like that where you promised somebody something that never came through? Maybe wasn't your fault, but have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, and in my world, it's kind of tough to do that because I work a lot with, my crews work out in the elements.
Yeah.
So we have to go off of weather. So that means we have to put schedules together based off weather. So if a customer comes to me and says, I need a job done by June 10th.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's May 10th. I'm like, no problem. Job takes me 3 weeks. We'll be done, wrapped up, out of there.
Yeah.
There's situations, weather arises, and they're like, okay, you told me it was going to be done in 3 weeks. Yeah, but we had 2 weeks of rain.
Yeah.
Like, we couldn't work. We weren't there because there was rain.
Right.
And they don't care about that.
Yeah.
So,
that's tough.
So, I always try, especially with me, because who I'm working with.
Yeah.
It only takes one job for me to burn a bridge and not be working with the company anymore.
Yeah.
So I always try to under deliver and or under promise, over deliver.
Yes, that's what you want.
You know what I mean. Just so not to put yourself in that position, because I've been in the position, and it's like you just have to backtrack. You feel stupid. You look stupid. I feel like all the words that are coming out of your mouth are just not right. Just not good. So
this is where my life is right now.
Yeah, this brutal. Just happened to me. So but so just try to go the opposite way, and I think that just becomes a communication thing and making sure that they're aware.
So is that something where instead of saying 4 weeks, you say 5 weeks? But knowing it should take 3 weeks, and then your crew's also aware?
Yeah.
It's hard.
No, yeah, it is hard, and it's, it's dependent, and you say...
Or you just say weather pending.
Yeah, you say 4 weeks, but you say weather pending.
Yeah.
But even, you could write it in big, bold 36 font, and people will still just be like, yeah, I saw that, but I don't care.
Still,
just disregard it.
The ceremony's supposed to happen on June 10th,
Exactly.
Oh, man, that's too funny.
Yeah, for sure.
So can you explain a little bit? All right, so everyone knows the sales industry is a competitive one. It could be a beautiful thing. It could be a dirty thing. It just depends on who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, the situation, the product, the service. Explain the competitiveness in the industry.
I think it's a little bit twofold. I think you have your competitors on the outside, obviously, that you're competing against for business with clients.
Yeah.
And then I think you also have the competitor that you're competing against the other people that are in your company.
Yeah.
So there's two different ways to look at it, and I think with the competitors on the outside, I think you always have to be mindful of them, but I never try to focus on what they do bad or what they do good. Yeah. I'm always aware that they're there. I always give them props for what they do, but I never would ever badmouth a competitor, because I think it's just bad for business. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I think you get more with, being nice and talking good about someone rather than bad mouthing them. And if I'm honest, if someone's better than me at something, I'll tell you. I don't, I'm not trying to blow smoke and tell you that this is this great thing. But then on the other side, just as far as competitive, what I think is the main part is like on the inside, like I don't want to lose to the other people that I work with.
Yeah.
Like they're number one, most of them are almost twice my age. So they all look it down on me like, oh, you're in this position, but you're younger. So like when I start beating people in sales, it's like, oh yeah, how's this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's how I always look at it is like, I just don't want to lose. I don't like, that's the part I don't like. Like getting the sale is great. Obviously that's what you're working towards and everything, but like losing to like somebody else in my company or like having them better, which obviously it happens all the time, but like, I think you have to just hate that side more and just like, I don't personally ever want, like, I just want to win.
Yeah, definitely.
No matter what it takes, you want to be on the winning side.
Yeah.
So I think just having that mindset that, always try to be in the first place.
That's awesome. Have you ever dealt with someone or business trying to take customers from you? So that's a different kind of competition where obviously we have these people knocking on our doors or kind of Goose was just talking about, I went on a brief break that, there was a different phone company or whatever, computer company that was trying to replace who he currently has, his current provider. Is that something you have to face where someone's just stealing your contacts or stealing your customers?
So you mean internally?
Yeah.
So yes, all the time.
Yeah.
I would say, there's one other person in the territory.
Yeah.
Business can be stolen in a plethora of different ways, but like you do have to be mindful of that, and you have to, in that sense, be aggressive.
Yeah.
Because you can't if someone's like, oh, I just took maybe a small $50,000 deal. Next month it's $200,000. That month after it's $500,000.
Yeah.
And now they got $750 on you.
Yeah.
So like you have to be aggressive to the point where it's like, no, that's mine. Like very territorial in a sense.
Yeah.
But you have to you're not going to get ahead by sitting back.
Right.
In sales, I feel like you have to be the go-getter. You have to be one kind of pushing the envelope. And if you let people try to come in and take what you're working on or have been working on, it just gets messy. But it does happen all the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man, I just seen it happen before, and it was just like one of the most slimiest things I've ever seen. It was like this person worked so hard to obtain this customer, and then this guy, once the business is already obtained, they just come and it's like, all right, we already sold on this kind of business, so now I just come in on the back end and just give you a better deal.
Yeah.
That's where like the ugly parts come in.
No, it completely right, and I think that goes back to like culture of the business and what the dynamics are internally at whatever company you might be at. For me, the company that I worked at previously was a completely different culture than where I'm at now. It was just different. Where I was before was a lot of younger people were the sales reps. You would walk in and it would be music blasting, like almost like a party vibe, but they wanted you because like in sales you need energy. Like nobody's going to go buy off someone who's like, hey, I'm Joe, like how you doing? So, they would always keep you very like, they wanted you to make amped up. They wanted you to make as much money as possible so you'd never want to leave. And this company, by all means, they want you to make money, but it's just a different environment where they're not so much. They are worried about the culture, but I just feel like it's not their main focus. And I think, I don't know, just with like social media and culture and like the younger generation, that's what people want. People want like a good vibe from their work. They want to feel appreciated and all that.
Sure, definitely. Speaking about that, what's the toughest part of being a salesman?
Probably the rejection.
Yeah.
Earlier I said, it's something you got to get comfortable with, but I would say the rejection and the unknown. Yeah. Because like there are months where you don't know what your commission will be, if any, you know what I mean? If you're having a bad month or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, your sales quota, the big bad sales quota that you got looming over your head every month.
That's right.
So like I think that is.
So is it a combination of just being like scared and motivated, or is it like, because it's like you said, there's a sales quota, so whatever it may be, like you have to generate $100,000 worth of sales in this month, whatever, and there's like 5 days left in a month, and you're only like halfway there, Right. So you got to land a whale, so to speak, in whatever industry. Is that something more that you're operating out of fear, or is it the same thing, or is that also motivation?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both, because ultimately, like I'm operating towards a goal. Like I have a certain dollar amount goal that I want to hit, and I know I have to exceed. Yeah. So like that's what I'm shooting for, and that's what I guess you could say it scares you, because in sales, it is in a lot of places a cutthroat business. Like if you're not selling, if you're not producing, chances are you're going to get canned. Yeah. It just is what it is. Yeah. So I definitely think that
it's a little bit of the fear plus the motivation.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. The coming up on, can you talk a little bit about the months where you do come up shy? And how does one bounce back off that the following month? So number one, that doesn't happen again, or so you don't fall into an actual slump.
Yeah, I think being communicative with your boss or manager or whoever that is, and figuring out, number one, why did you fail? Why did you not get to your mark? Did you not talk to enough people? Did you not have enough projects you were working on? What was it? Yeah. And then formulating a plan to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But there are months, by all means, like it's a very cyclical business. So roofing in the Northeast, you can't do all year round. You can do it nationally, but not all year round. Yeah. So I think you just have to make your losses not that big. Yeah. So you have to, if your quota every month is 100,000, and in the first 2 months of the year, you only sell 25 each month. So now you have to make up 150,000. Yeah. You have to know in the back of your head that you have to be every month chomping away at that a little bit extra. Yeah. So you always try to obviously start the year hot, but if you don't, you're always clawing back till you get to even almost in a sense. Yeah.
So is that something that you do? You tap into your resources in a sense? Like, do you go into classes? Do you take classes? Do you have meetups? Is there conferences? Or you just kind of bounce ideas off your manager?
Yeah, I kind of bounce. I mean, it depends where I'm struggling. Like, if I was working on a huge deal and we just happen to lose out for good reason, which you don't want to do, but it happens. Yeah. It is what it is. Like, you feel like you did everything you could do to ultimately win it, and you don't. Right. It stinks, but your manager is very understanding of that, because they've been in that position. They understand. So I think that they, just having them there to say, oh, maybe you could do this way or do this that way, and just having a different, fresh perspective from the ideas that you're pushing through your head, because you got to think like you're the one that just missed quota. Right. So you're the one that's worrying about next month quota plus the month you just missed. Right. So like he's just worrying about the overall picture, whereas you're so in like the weeds of the day to day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I know even like car salesmen where they don't meet their quota, it gets like taken out of their next pay. Wow. Future pays. Yeah. It's like, whoa, it's heavy.
Yeah, and just to talk like, how much like the grind of sales is my previous company, there was people that, like, it was like a heavy intensive of cold calling. It was a lot of people that were new or out of college. I saw people come into the company and be there for 30 days and leave crying after 30 days. Yeah. And it was just like, and it wasn't like, oh, it was girls or it was guys. It was like a lot more guys than it was girls doing this. Yeah. And it was just because like they could either like didn't want the pressure or whatever, and they didn't realize it was going to be a hard work. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people see sales and they're like, oh, you can make all this money, or it's all great, or you only work these many hours. Yeah. But they don't see like the behind the scenes stuff, right? They see the end product or the end, sold deal, whatever it may be.
Yeah. That's tough. It is tough. Yeah. And I would say that's fair to say in most businesses. And sometimes you have a talent, right? Sometimes you may make it look easier than what people think. Like, well, he just called like 5 people and just locked in 2. I mean, I can make 5 phone calls right now and everyone dump the phone on me, throw it down the toilet, and it's just like, oh no. That's tough, man. It's trippy on your ego too. I know that's definitely not easy, but there's definitely that mental toughness. Not to compare it to any, military or anything, but there's a reason why some people make it through and or have the ability to serve our country, and some don't make it past boot camp. There's a challenge, there's a mental capacity that has to be there.
And that's the reason why that's set up that way.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's almost like saying too, it's like it's filtering people out. Yes. I mean, how bad did you want this? I mean, within that first month you're done, you're shot. And it's all over. Yeah. I talk about that the whole time with the the shirt company or the lifestyle brand, where it's like, dude, you realize how many things you have to overcome, just basic things, and that gave me so much trouble.
Yeah.
But for me, it was way beyond that. That was a headache. Yes, of course, that was an inconvenience. But the picture's way bigger for me, right? So if you asked me prior, it was all about me just flipping $1. How can I make 1 into 2 and 2 into 4, right? Yeah. And so when something like that would come, I'm like, there's so many ways to make money, so I'm done with this idea.
Yeah.
So it really does depend on where your heart is,
sure,
where your mind is. I mean, and two, it's bringing in your experience, but as you mentioned, it's like the leadership. If you have a very unsupportive management team in place, you're going to have what is called a revolving door business, where there's constantly new salesmen in and out, or whatever the business or service is. It's just not a fun place to be.
Yeah,
it's really not. I've experienced it. I've been in it, having zero support from upper management. It's just not a good look. It's not a good look for anybody.
No.
Your business is suffering. Your people are suffering. You're suffering. It's stressful. It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
You're crushing people all at the same time. Like, this is bad. It just stinks.
Yeah.
It's definitely not fun. Now, do they do, in this industry with commissions, is that something that they do to kind of not lure you, but to like push you? Is that where that comes from? Like, everyone's not a motivational speaker, right? But there's some people who know how to coach, strategically. But when you're kind of, the carrot is a pretty big carrot. I mean, I'm sure it's going to motivate a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, it is that. I mean, that's why I do it. Like, for me I've had a job where I had to go to an office and sit there from 8 to 5. You collect your check every week. And for maybe 90% of the world or 80% of the world, that's great. It's cool. Sure. They love it.
Yeah.
And they kill it.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the schedule I wanted. It wasn't the money I wanted. It wasn't any of that.
Yeah.
So I think, in a lot of places I feel are this way, you're able to make a lot more in commission than they'll ever pay you in salary.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they do it that way on purpose.
Yeah.
You win big, they win big. Everybody's going to ultimately make money and do well. So I think that's 100%, the carrot, because even you tell me to throw a trash can on the roof, I'm like, nah, I'm good. You tell me if you pay me $500 to do it,
sure,
and I'll get it up there very quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's it's all about the motivation and Absolutely. What motivates you. And for some people, it's not always about the money to be in sales. Sometimes they want it because you can, in a sense, make your own schedule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of times I do that just because I don't need to be in an office to work with my clients or do my business.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like it because they get to spend more quality time with their families.
Yeah.
Which is great. You know what I mean? Everybody's at a different point in their life and are looking for different things. So I think for me, sales is kind of the money motivation behind it of ultimately.
Yeah.
Getting to where I want.
Now, is there an ultimate goal outside of this? I know you did talk about, maybe being in the, they call it the C-suites at one point, right? Is that or you want to own your own company, or what's honestly, not to be nothing specific, but just kind of a general.
No, I mean, right now I'm single, but down the road, a family, a house, that's kind of what I'm looking for, 10 years down the road, or even 3 years down the road, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm building for. And I think there's I don't know if this is you just get to a certain age and you stop kind of not caring about what the outside world has to say about you.
Yeah.
But you kind of just are focused on what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to you don't need somebody's approval to say oh, you can go, oh, Joe, you can go do the podcast, or you could say this, or you could do that. If you want to go drink 45 beers in 1 hour, go do that. Let me work while you're doing that.
Right, exactly.
Don't, you know what I mean? Don't hate on what I'm doing just because it's not up your alley.
Exactly.
So I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
Just let me, if I want to work, just, let me work, and you want to do your own thing. I think blocking out the outside, any kind of negative is a big motivator.
100%. All right. So wrapping things up, you spoke about that a little bit, about the work-life balance. How do you manage all that?
I would say it's tough because I have clients that have facilities on the West Coast as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a late at night game or an early morning thing, and I think you just have to. I don't think I look at it so much anymore as like it's like this big bad job that I have to go to every day.
Yeah.
I kind of look at it as like I run this as my own business. When I'm in sales, like I have to worry about the invoicing, I have to worry about bringing the projects in, getting them sold, getting them moved along. So I think you have to look at it much more from like a 30,000 foot view rather than like the everyday.
All right, so just going back, it's the obviously the work-life balance. It's how are you yourself managing it? Obviously, it's not going to be the same as you are 30-year-old Joe versus 50 or 60-year-old Joe.
Yeah, I just think you have to set time away for yourself. Like you have to have your time to like decompress from the everyday, even the minute phone calls, the ones that are just mean nothing to you, just to kind of get away from everything.
Right.
And I think you have to take time. Like for me, I like to golf, even though I'm really bad. But like for me, that's like a stress reliever. Yeah. So I go do that, and I just listen to music, chill out, do my thing, or go into the gym. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think you have to have it. It's definitely tough to do in sales because if your customer is calling you, dangling something in your face, you're not going to not take that call. You're going to answer every time. Right. So like like in sports, they say availability is the best ability. Realistically, when you're available to your customers, anybody can not answer the phone. Right. You know what I mean? Of course, you don't want to answer the phone 9:30 at night. But the ones that do is the reason that they keep coming back. Yeah. So I think separate it when you can, but it's hard to do.
It is, and I do appreciate, because then once you get into, it's awesome too, because the situation that you're in, you're a single guy, you're just crushing it like all over. Strategically, it's the best move, because then once you start to get your own family, now your time being captured. Now once you lock into management or above, you kind of have a little bit more set hours. Obviously, you're going to have the crazy random calls and the emergencies or whatever, but it's not going to be that wild where it's like the wild west. Somebody's going to call you at 4 a.m, whatever. Maybe, and it might happen, but it's not on that regular basis where you're in like complete panic mode or at paranoia at all times. All right, so the last thing is, what's your recommendation to anyone trying to achieve their dream as a salesman? I would say get as much experience as you can, because sell those M&Ms. Sell them M&Ms in college. Do it up. It's too funny. Big sales. But and don't come into sales just thinking it's going to be easy, thinking it's going to be a cakewalk to making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. It's definitely a grind, and there's going to be really tough times where you're going to be like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. I don't want to do it. I'm done. Yeah. But I just think, pushing through those times are what makes your sales even better when you get them and proceeding in your career. Yeah. So I would just say, if you want to get into it, get your experience, get used to talking to people, because I think that's hard too. Yeah. Going into somebody's office and just sitting down and being like, hi, I'm Joe. How you doing? Like, how weird is this? Yeah. like how we doing? So, I just think experience is, as much as possible. Love it. All right, so there you have it, folks. We like to wrap things up by quotes, and the first one is by Thomas J. Watson Jr. Whenever an individual or a business decides that success has been attained, progress stops. And the second one by Mary Kay Ash. A mediocre idea that generates enthusiasm will go further than a great idea that inspires no one. Set sales. In this episode, we have special guest and national account manager Joe Snydman. We cover topics that range from customer retention, sales quotas, the art of new sales, competition, and much more. We wrap the episode up from quotes by Mary Kay Ash and Thomas J. Watson Jr. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.